From being a part of a film that seems like it's destined to fail, to starring in one of the worst superhero movies of all time, Chris Evans has had his fair share of terrible projects. Starting off, it's a movie that isn't even out yet, Ghosted. For a movie that's yet to release, this sure is looking like it's a worthy addition to this list. After all, the movie has mostly been getting negative press so far, and there are even some tensions behind the scenes which indicate that production may not have been sunshine and rainbows. So, just what's the deal with Ghosted? Well, for one, the plot reminds everyone of a pretty old Tom Cruise movie. That newsflash ended up flopping quite a bit, called Night and Day. It was released back in 2010 and was eerily identical to the plot of Ghosted. Fans were pretty quick to share the blatant similarities between the two works, with fans of the original even saying that this exact film has already been made. People just feel like it's doing the same thing fans have already seen time and time again, and that's why almost no one is excited to see it. To make matters worse, initially Scarlett Johansson was cast for the role, but due to some internal issues that they conveniently called scheduling conflicts, she was removed from the project, and Ana de Armas was added instead, and that's giving them yet another reason to not see this movie. It's set to come out later in April, so I guess time will tell us if it really will be one of Chris's worst films ever.
Get every bounty hunter on the continent. I want her alive.
This is bigger than you and me.
That said, there are tons of other movies that deserve a mention, like Newcomers, from all the way back in 2000. Believe it or not, this is actually the movie where Evans made his feature film debut, and boy was it not a great entrance. The drama follows the lives of a family that leaves the big city for a simpler life in a small town, but they soon find out that fitting in isn't as easy as they thought. The movie honestly feels super outdated, even for the time. It's less of a feature film and more of an overly long episode of some cheesy TV show. The plot doesn't have any kind of focus whatsoever, and any acting chops that an emerging Chris Evans had got thoroughly wasted by the boring script. But hey, at least Newcomers has the excuse of being super old.
Here, just try and look right down the sight. Go ahead, try.
Did you show me?
Yeah.
The same cannot be said for this next movie. It's Lightyear. Ah yes, the remake of a story that no one asked for. Lightyear proved that you can't just make a story involving familiar characters and expect people to go see it. The Toy Story spin-off failed to get nearly as much love as some of the other things that Pixar has made lately. In fact, it's sitting at a terrible 5.5 on IMDb currently, which is just laughably bad. That said, even with its faults, I definitely don't think it deserves to get a rating that terrible. If you ask me, I think this is a plain old case of review bombing. There were some elements of the movie that online trolls definitely weren't too keen with, and so the overwhelmingly bad ratings may just be because of that reason. Though don't let this let you think the movie's any good, because it really isn't all that great.
Commander Hawthorne, you know how I feel about rookies. They're the same way I feel about autopilots. How may I assist you? Is there anything I can do, sir? They don't help, they just overcomplicate things. I'm better off just doing the job.
And the same can be said for this next movie. It's Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Before Evans took over the big screen as Captain America, he played the role of the Human Torch, another character from Marvel Comics. But unfortunately, this role didn't get him nearly as much praise. The first Fantastic Four film was serviceable. It wasn't anything close to the MCU, but hey, it was pretty good for the time. Though the second one really missed the mark, and it ranks as one of the worst films that Evans has ever worked on. So just what went wrong with it? Well, after the first movie, for some reason, they decided that they wanted to go fully family-friendly with the second one, and because of this, the tone of the movie is all over the place. It feels like a totally cheesy rendition of the comic book storyline that borders on the ridiculous at times. It's almost like they made a parody of the first movie, and not in a good way. The film was so bad that fans never got to see another Fantastic Four film starring the cast again. Though, who knows? we may get to see them suit up again in the MCU. After all, anything is possible with the multiverse, right?
Oh, that is cool.
Speaking of movies that feel so bad that they feel like parodies, I've got to mention this next movie. It's not another teen movie. This is another movie from very early in Chris's career, and boy is it terrible. It's one of the first leading roles he ever got offered, which is pretty cool to think about, but just about everything in this movie is just painfully outdated. A big reason why is that the film is basically a spoof of popular teen movies from the 90s. You know, stuff like 10 Things I Hate About You or She's All That. The problem is that no one really remembers those movies all too well anymore, which makes this spoof utterly unwatchable. But when it came out, no one was super ecstatic to be seeing it. Evans played the role of a popular quarterback in the film, and for what it's worth, he's pretty funny in it, though the general tone and outdated subject matter definitely makes it a miss for me. For this next film, it doesn't get any more iconic than this. It's the perfect score. For a movie with a title like that, you'd expect it to have more than 5.6 on IMDb. But hey, maybe the director was just aiming lower than expected. This is a film starring Evans and Scarlett Johansson, and it's all the way back from 2004. Yup, the two have been starring together since way before the MCU. The movie is about a group of high schoolers who decide to steal the answers to the SAT. Hey, we've all been there, right? The premise sounds fun enough for a goofy comedy starring a bunch of teens, but the filmmakers played it almost too safely, and what little dark and edginess could have been added to the movie was missing. This made it a fairly dull affair, and so even the talented cast wasn't able to make this film watchable. In the end, it's just a bunch of lazy jokes and annoying characters strewn up together, and that is just no good.
Right here.
Yeah, you just need the answers.
Exactly.
Oh, I get it. Come on.
Finally, it's not just a movie Chris starred in, but also one that he directed. Yep, it's Before We Go. I really want to say Chris's directorial debut was amazing, but unfortunately, it was anything but. The film has a bunch of interesting artistic choices, but they don't always work out. Like there's almost no background music in the movie. Not to mention the main themes feel incredibly muddied up and messy. It's never too obvious just what the movie is going on about. Is it supposed to be about love, relationships, or New York? Or just a hazy mix of all three? Who knows? It's not the worst movie ever, but it's definitely not the best that Chris has made, and definitely a pretty subpar first attempt at directing. But hey, those are all of the worst films that Chris Evans has been a part of. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.